Oops. Shoot. Happy Sunday, Nat. I'm out of it for some reason. I feel very not here right now. I feel very not here. I need a nap or something. Except I can't nap. It's a lost cause. It's good to see you, Nat. Let's see. Document. Whoops. All right, we're gonna wait a few minutes and then roll. Galatians is my favorite. It's my favorite at this moment in time. Lilith, it's good to see you. I don't know how, but I've lost sight of this book for the last couple of years. Now I really don't understand why or how, but going through this again, honestly, I'm getting like a refreshed or renewed appreciation for the Bible. The depth of it. I obviously appreciate the Bible, but it's a different level. Galatians is a different level. You see some stuff, you hear some stuff that you just don't hear in the rest of it anywhere. There are things in this text that are just not anywhere else. There are parts of Paul that are not anywhere else. You get a very specific, very individual, and very unique view of Paul, and it's really interesting. It's very interesting. It's been the most exciting one to kind of get ready for, prepare for. All right, a couple people filing in. All right, while we wait, if you are watching this later, or you just happen to not be in the Discord yet, there is a Discord. It is free. It will always be free. That much I can promise. I can't promise much else. Most important thing here is the events tab. This will tell you when we do all the stuff that we do. You're here right now, live Bible study. That's at 6 p.m. every Sunday night. On Saturdays, last night, we do news and culture. You can submit articles, videos, whatever. We just kind of talk about it, honestly, just what's going on this past week. And then we do the Theist Thesis podcast on Thursday. That's a topic-based discussion that everybody votes on. We post a poll every Thursday night. Everybody votes, and that's what we talk about. Pornography is the one coming up right here. It'll be on 125. That's this coming Thursday. And you can also call into that. So Discord's where you got to be for any of that stuff right there. Valerie. Oh, I'm glad you're here. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. You'll appreciate this, Valerie, because of your current education status. When I go through this before, I do it like Sunday morning, throughout the day, basically. I kind of file through whatever we're going to read every Sunday. And I don't recall ever in seminary, and I know you're in Bible school, I don't recall ever talking about easily like 80% of the things that there are to talk about. I have, and maybe I'm remembering it wrong, maybe I'm being pessimistic and cynical, but I don't remember going in depth, like to the degree that we're about to. And it has nothing to do with me. Anybody can do this. It's all readily available. I just feel like seminary and Bible school does not do justice to like actual exegesis. When I go through this throughout the day on Sunday, I just always remember like when I was sitting in classrooms being taught by people who were like theologians and wrote books and stuff. And I'm like, it's just sad. Like it's sad. It's kind of sad. Ghost, Pastora, Scott. Oh, Charlotte made it. There you are. You got it. You nailed it. Yeah, well, we made it extremely hard because now every stream is at a different time. So I'm very glad you're here. Did Michael say the same thing? That's funny. That's interesting. I did not know that. But I swear to God, anytime I talk to anybody who's like, oh, I'm thinking about going to seminary, I'm thinking about going to Bible school, I'm like, please, for the love of God, don't. Find groups of people, find streams, find a theologian that you respect their work, and just study them. don't waste your money. I just don't see it as anything other than a waste of money, unless you're going to a very specific position with an organization or whatever that you know they require it. I think it's an absolute waste of time. I learned 100 times within 2 years after seminary what I learned through 6 years of seminary. There's no doubt. And everybody wants to like give status to people who go through seminary. I immediately think less of people. And I get how stupid and hypocritical that is, but I immediately think less of people when I hear they've gone through some kind of seminary or Bible school. I'm like, did you self-study though? Did you go down weird rabbit holes? You know, have you read the stuff they told you not to read that they said was just BS? I just immediately like have a stigma. There's a stigma to it. Shannon, we got to talk because you're lovely and I miss you. But we also got to talk. I'm happy to see you. Very happy to see you. If you talk to Jeremiah before we get off tonight, tell him I did see his message and we're good to go. Good to go. Shannon, and then we're going to start. I'm sorry I'm like slow playing you. Shannon, did you see the 2 U.S. Navy SEALs that went missing? I guess it was like 10 days ago. And I think they finally just announced them or decided whatever the word is. I can't recall, but they're saying they're deceased. Does that just mean they gave up? Does that mean they gave up on the search? Is that just like, we're done? We're done. They're dead. I hope that's not what it means, but it's kind of the way the article read. And it was very sad. Kelsey, it's been a while. It's good to see you. Yeah, it's super sad. It's real sad to hear about that. Real sad to hear about that. All right. All that aside, we're in Galatians. If you hear, I don't say this often when we do Bible study because a lot of the time it doesn't matter. But I will say this. If you weren't here last week for chapters 1 and 2, I do highly recommend you go watch the recording. Galatians does run kind of in sequence, at least to some degree. It runs in sequence. And the reason it's really important, and I was talking just when there were 2 people sitting here, is that there is no other text in the Bible like Galatians. There is no expression from Paul as an individual, as an author, like Galatians. There are a lot of firsts in Galatians, and there are a lot of onlys in Galatians. And that should be a substantial note for anybody who aspires to be a biblical student in any way whatsoever. So if you missed last week, I really do recommend watching it because there was a lot that was covered. And it's going to take too long if I renew all of that in everybody's mind. So after this, go watch that. And then this will make a little bit more sense. I'll try to recap kind of as we go, though, the best I can. Yeah, that's sad, Shannon. That sucks. That's such a bummer to hear about. All right, chapter 3. By faith or by works of law? Question mark. O foolish Galatians. What a way to start. Who has bewitched you? It was before your eyes that Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified. O foolish Galatians. This is arguably one of, if not the most emotionally charged pushes from Paul, the most emotionally charged addresses that Paul gives during one of his epistles. Paul he's referring to the literal incompetence, the mental, the spiritual incompetence, specifically in like lack of wisdom. It's again, like Paul does, it's offensive. He's being offensive. He's being rude intentionally. And again, just as like a brain exercise, if you choose to be rude over a text message, which, equivalent of this, you're really dedicated to being rude. Think about that. Like a lot of time when we're rude, it's passive, right? We feel emotionally off. And so when we engage with somebody in a conversation, we express rudeness in a passive way. You don't always intend to be rude. It just comes off that way. But if you're writing a letter to somebody or you're writing a text message to somebody in today's world and you're rude, you're like, I am going to be rude because they deserve it for all of these reasons. It's an intentional thing. It's an active thing. It's not passive, which is a part of why it's so humorous to a degree. But it carries weight is the point. Who has bewitched you? Paul is asking the question, rhetorically, obviously, of the entire congregation, of the audience. He is not trying to get the identities of what they're calling the agitators, which are the people that are coming in and kind of sowing false seed within the congregation. They're sowing lies among the people of the church. He's not trying to identify specifics of them, their identity, who they are, of the agitators themselves. But he wants to make it clear to the Galatians that their rejection of freedom in Christ is what is at stake with this. It's as though someone he's basically saying, you have been bewitched. Is there a spell that is cast on you? You got to keep in mind too that sorcery was a thing. The Bible talks about sorcery, sometimes in a roundabout way, sometimes in a very direct way, but the Bible discusses sorcery. The Bible discusses sorcery. So it's a reference to kind of a cultural thing too, but it's a sarcastic statement of have you been put under a spell? Are you guys so stupid, or have you been deluded by something other than that which is good? And then he said, Christ was publicly portrayed. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my glasses. Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified. One of Paul's big things we know from Corinthian church specifically, that a lot of these churches had an issue with the crucifixion. Whether they didn't fully understand it, some outright rejected it, which obviously is problematic if you're going to follow the Christian faith. But either way, Paul has kind of struggled, depending on the church, with the concept of crucifixion. So he says Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified. He's referring to the Gospels, which Paul himself had presented to the Galatians, which we read about in chapter 1, and also elsewhere in his letters. Paul uses the crucifixion as this shorthand way of discussing the gospel. That's the reference. He's referencing the gospel. And again, he did this in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 as well. So he did it in Galatians 1. He's doing it in 1 Corinthians 1. It's a theme for him to some degree. Verse 2, let me ask you only this. Did you receive the Spirit by works of the law, or by hearing with faith? By works of the law. Did you receive the Spirit by works of the law? The question is an appeal to the congregants. It's an appeal to their own experience. When Paul presents this kind of question, it's after he presents the gospel message. The Galatians believed and then received the Spirit without submitting to what these agitators are instructing them to do in terms of circumcision. So if you weren't here last week, circumcision is the big, what do we do? That's why Paul's pissed. That's why there are issues. Is they're having the main issue of the New Testament. They're hitting it head to head in Galatians here. The biggest issue, arguably, within the entire New Testament is this. You have a bunch of Gentiles who are coming to Christianity. Cool. They're essentially blank slates. They don't have previous religious history. And if they do, it's wildly different than anything like Judaism or Christianity. It's woo-woo land stuff. So Gentiles coming into Christianity, they're blank slates. They're very easy to teach the gospel to. They're very receptive of it. Whereas you had a lot of problems with the old Jews coming into Christianity, which makes sense because not only do they keep their foundation, but in a sense, it seems as though they're ripping away a part of their tradition. And circumcision was one of those big things. Where Christians, for the most part, Paul specifically, which is why he's on trial, basically, said circumcision is not required. That is of the law. Jesus came to fulfill the law. Therefore, you do not need to do that anymore. And a lot of these agitators, the people who are stirring up in the church, are saying, no, you still need circumcision. You still need to adhere to the law. And that's the huge push that we read about in 1 and 2. So that's why I said, if you missed that, you should go back and watch it, because a lot of this, the full context of it, you're not going to grasp as much as you should. So he's saying that the Galatians believed and then received the Spirit without submitting to what these agitators were instructing them to do in regards to circumcision, as well as food laws, as well as calendar observance. What are all of those things? Tradition. What is the tradition that they're tied to? It's old Jewish tradition. It was really hard for the Jews to break away from the tradition and come under what Paul calls adiaphora, which is kind of that call it a gray area, but it's the freedom that is under Christ. It's the point of why Christ hung on a piece of wood and died, was for humanity to have the freedom that it did not have under the laws, Mosaic law, Levitical law of the Old Testament. And Paul is really struggling to get some of these groups of people within certain churches to fully grasp that. And this is the best, in my opinion, struggle session between Paul and an example of a church where he's trying to sort this out. Verse 3, are you so foolish? Again, that's offensive back then. Today, it sounds stupid and silly. It was offensive. Are you so foolish? Having begun by the Spirit, are you now being perfected by the flesh? It's sarcasm. The people who are coming in and stirring stuff up, it seems as though there's an insinuation that they had told the Galatians that keeping the law would make them whole. It would make them legitimate. It would make them valid. Or we'll get the insinuation later from this, or why we get that is it might also be they're telling them that this will make you a mature Christian, which in a way is kind of manipulative, because if it wasn't that they were trying to get them to believe these things, sticking to the law was to make them legitimate to God, which was old Jewish tradition. If that didn't work on them, it seems as though from the context that they tried a different route, which was to, okay, well then this is actually just what you need to do to be a mature Christian. So if you're not doing it to be seen as legitimate under God of the Old Testament, then maybe you'll do it in order to feel like you're a mature Christian in this new way movement. It's manipulative. It's actually relatively smart. Verse 4, did you suffer so many things in vain? If indeed it was in vain. Translationally, it might come across as have you suffered, but did you suffer refers to the Galatians, their overall spiritual experience. Or possibly to some kind of social discrepancy between some of the believers that they were experiencing because of the gospel, which either one would kind of make sense. There's not absolute clarity on it. Either one would make sense, and it doesn't really make a huge difference about anything at all. But it would make sense to me about the context that we just talked about, where the Jews are having a hard time assimilating to the way, the new Christian movement, because they're butting heads on that issue of the law. He's rhetorically asking the Galatian people whether they forgot the experiences that they experienced in order to, or in favor of, observing the traditional Jewish laws. It's a sarcastic, rhetorical question. Did you suffer so many things in vain, if indeed it was in vain? Verse 5, does he who supplies the Spirit to you and works miracles among you do so by works of the law or by hearing with faith? The question sets up this contrast between the law and faith that we're going to completely rip through over the next chapter and a half. Then here through 6 through 29, right? 6 through 29. So in this section, Paul presents a model. He presents the model of true saving faith in Abraham. And it gets interesting, and you get a lot of Paul's kind of academic side here. We touch on it like every time we read anything by Paul, because he constantly refers to the Old Testament. But you really see him drag the Old Testament in here hard. And why would that be? Because he's trying to convince Jewish people. So these are Jewish people having a hard time assimilating to the way, the early Christian movement. So he's saying, okay, I'm going to shove a whole bunch of academic Old Testament things at you. So one, you know I know what I'm talking about. And two, you just in general know what I'm talking about. You're going to grasp this because this is what you understand from your Jewish roots. So in doing so, Paul is demonstrating that God has always justified people by faith. It's not just a New Testament thing, and not by works directly or solely. Paul is then going to really add some clarity to the role of the law in God's plan now. As in, it was intended to serve as a guardian until the time of Christ. I explain it sometimes as it was intended to act as a mirror to the Israeli people. It was meant to be a mirror to show their iniquity to them, just consistently and constantly. Either kind of imagery, in my opinion, does it justice. But 6, just as Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteous. Know then that it is those of faith who are the sons of Abraham. So Abraham believed in God. It's a reference to trusting God will be faithful. Abraham's a real good example of that. Will be faithful and fulfill his promises in all areas. And he's referencing Genesis 15. God had promised Abraham an heir and countless descendants. It's Genesis. He's throwing Genesis at them. And then sons of Abraham refers to those who express faith like Abraham, not Abraham's biological sons. So that's a point of clarity. Abraham represents the model of faith for all believers in general, both the Jewish people as well as the Gentile people. So he's referencing the Old Testament, capturing the Jewish audience, and then he's connecting the Jewish audience with the Gentile audience and trying to bring them together. Knowing then that there's those of faith who are the sons of Abraham, and the scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the Gentiles by faith, preached the gospel beforehand to Abraham, saying, in you shall all the nations be blessed. So then, those who are of faith are blessed along with Abraham, the man of faith. So there's a bit here. One, for just to be just totally clear, in case anybody's not there. When he's referencing scripture, he's obviously only referencing the Old Testament. I don't feel like I need to say that, but just in case. I had a conversation with somebody the other day where they didn't fully grasp that. And it's nothing against them, because I get that it's confusing. I get not everybody really has a firm grasp on scripture. But if Paul is writing something and he says scripture, just understand it has nothing to do with the New Testament. I think everybody here knows that, but I just want to make absolute sure. And then he said, God would justify the Gentiles by faith. By faith. Paul is arguing there that the gospel message, the justification of Gentiles through faith, apart from the law, was always, was from the beginning, a part at least of God's plan, if not the plan. Elsewhere, in other places, Paul refers to this as a mystery. That's in Ephesians and that's in Romans. If you go to Romans 16, he refers to it in that way there. And then if you go to Ephesians 1, he refers to it in that way as well, is as a mystery. The inclusion in the people of God would occur, it would happen by faith in Christ, the promised seed of Abraham, the promised and coming Messiah. So no matter what, you still have to kind of shift from this condition of the law, no matter which way you spin it. Because even under strictly Old Testament law, there was still that oversight, that overhang of what are we going towards? What is the point? What is coming? And that was the Messiah. That was the promised seed of Abraham. If you read the Romans and the Ephesians, it's interesting to see the correlation and kind of where he touched on different things to different churches in this regard. And then what do you say? He said, in you shall all the nations be blessed. It's a quote, again, from Genesis. That time it's from chapter 12. In the context of Galatians, though, this blessing is the spirit and the gift of justification by faith. So he's going to continue to do this thing. And this is why I really love and respect Paul, is because he was really educated. Not only was he really educated, it seems as though from context, he was not well spoken. Okay. But then add in the reality that whether he wrote the letters himself or he had somebody write them for him, either way, he was able to express things to the churches in a very, very, very intelligent way. And when you break all this stuff down, word for word and verse for verse, you really start to grasp that. He, in a positive manner, he's a master manipulator. In a positive manner, he has a way about him of forcing people to see exactly what the hell he's talking about, and then being able to connect them to something that they're familiar with. He would have been, if he was able to verbally speak well, he would have been the greatest prosperity preacher of all time, should he fall away from the actual gospel and decide he wanted money. Thank God that wasn't him. He denied all the money, but good Lord, would he be able to just pull money out of people's pockets, because he had a way about him of doing this type of thing. He was very, very, very good. Verse 9, so then, Those who are of faith are blessed along with Abraham, the man of faith. He's emphasizing that faith, not ethnicity, is the determining factor, which essentially means that the Gentile believers, like the Galatians specifically, the ones who were Gentiles, can share in Abraham's blessing. So one, Jews, connection to you, you are with the Gentiles. Now, Gentiles, connection to you, you are with the Jews. He's trying to bring them all together, and he does it so well. So very well. The righteous shall live by faith. For all who rely on works of the law are under a curse. For it is written, cursed be everyone who does not abide by all things written in the book of the law and do them. Now the curse. He's pulling from Deuteronomy. So if you go to Deuteronomy 27. And then if you go to Deuteronomy 28, he's showing that every person, whether they are a Jew or they are a Gentile, they rely on works of the law that is under the curse of the law. That curse stands in this direct contrast or conflict to the blessing of Abraham that comes to those who trust God, including the Gentiles. So there's his Deuteronomy, which he's always a huge fan of. And then he said, cursed be everyone who does not abide by all things written in the book of the law and do them. He's quoting again. It's the Deuteronomy. It's 27. He's trying to inform them and force them to grasp, force the Galatians that they need to obey the entire law, is the point he's trying to say. So he's cool with the law. He's not cool with the way that they're implementing the law, because it's a very legalistic implementation. He's trying to inform the Galatian people that they must obey the law, the entire law, all of the law, not just portions of it that you want to continue doing, because failure to do so would result in this curse. So again, he's a master manipulator, and manipulation has such a weird stigma. The word manipulation is not inherently negative. We just use it in a negative way. There are people who do positive manipulation. Paul was a positive manipulator. He's quoting Deuteronomy, capturing the Jews, to inform the Galatians, a split between Jews and Gentiles, that they need to obey the entire law, which is what they want. It's what they think they want, because it's what they think they're pushing for with circumcision. So he's like, cool, I agree with you, but you need to adopt all of the law, not just the little bits and pieces that you want to do. And us as Christians today sure as hell know that, because that's what basically every denomination of Christianity does. They've picked and chose the things that they like from the Bible, and then they've applied those to their denomination. They ignore the things that don't sound so good or aren't culturally relevant or that might get shunned due to current society, and they just pretend like those things don't really exist. Paul would have an issue with this. He wants, if you're going to go with the law, go with all of the law, not just portions of it. Failure to do so, he's saying, would put you under a curse. Verse 11, now it is evident that no one is justified before God by the law, for the righteous shall live, but the law is not of faith. Rather, the one who does them shall live by them. Righteous shall live by faith. Paul is now quoting another Old Testament book. He's quoting another Old Testament book. And I'm going to wait to say which one, because he's going to go in again later. And I want to actually go back and read that one. But he's providing a sort of evidence that justification by faith was always a part of God's plan, if not the entire plan, a fundamental part of the entire plan. God's whole plan for salvation included this from the start, is what he's trying to insinuate. People were not saved by the law of the Old Testament. They weren't. And I don't know why that gets confused. The Bible never says they were. And yet it seems like people really believe that that was kind of the understanding back then. It wasn't the understanding. It was a confusion. It wasn't an agreed upon thing. It seemed to be some kind of faulty thinking that started in the early church, and then Christians just kind of kept running with it. I'm not sure. But God's plan always includes salvation, and justification by faith was always a part of that salvific plan. People were not saved by the law of the Old Testament. They just were not. They were only to be saved by faith in the New Testament. Salvation has always come by faith. Also important is Paul's argument in the same section of the Old Testament. It does not distinguish in any way between Gentiles and Jews in reference to righteousness. They are one, is what contextually seems to be the truth in that. Faith is what matters to God, not a person's ethnicity, which if you think about it is true. The Jews, if you go back and actually read the Old Testament, think about this for a second, because some of this might sound kind of crazy, or maybe it's a little bit too much if you're not deep into this stuff. But think about this for a second. Were the Jews ever in a place biblically? Were they ever in a place where like they were right with God for an extended period of time? Think about it for a second. Was there ever a time when like God was just, he's like, God, this is great. You guys are awesome. You're doing everything I'd hoped you'd ever do. You know, I don't require any sort of sacrifice. We're all good. Everything is kosher. To use kind of a not great term, I guess, in that context, but you get what I mean. Not really. It was problem after problem. It was iniquity after iniquity. It was failure after failure. It was disobeying and then disobeying. It was just this constant falling on your face right on top of a mirror, which is what Paul consistently tries to get across to new believers or people that were part of this way movement. The early Christian church is that nobody was ever saved by the law. What are you guys talking about? So why then do you keep trying to bring all of these traditions and Old Testament concepts, all these Mosaic and Levitical laws? Why are you trying to continue them on now? We finally got through this. God finally let us go from this. And you guys are continuing to bring this stuff in, and you're muddying the water. And you can tell from this, specifically here, the way this started tonight, you foolish Galatians, this stuff pissed him off. He got upset about it. Oh, I'm glad Jeremiah's here. So yeah, Jeremiah knows. He said, yeah, we have. Then some of us slipped up a couple of times. Continually, right? And that's not to say that we know when the New Testament came, we didn't mess up continually. But thank God for Jesus. And I know, Jeremiah, you're not there. So obviously for you, it's different. But assume the Christian faith is true, we would be screwed had Jesus not come. So Jeremiah, get out of your Jewish mindset. If Jesus never came, we'd still be living in what Israel was living in, which is that, you know, strapping a mirror to the front of your face and then just continually falling and hitting the ground. It's just over and over and over, and there's no way out. It's this cyclical cycle of failure. The Christian concept, should you subscribe to it, is that the whole point of Jesus was that you could take the mirror off. And you're still going to fall, but somebody fell before you and they basically pad the ground for you. So that not all of that is on you anymore. Obviously, personal responsibility, free agency. I'm huge proponents of these things, but theologically, Jesus fell so you don't have to in the greater context of the Bible as a whole. And I feel like that's kind of a lost thing that people don't really talk about. They talk about the general concept, but not kind of the specifics of it. This is why Paul is so pissed all of the time. He was somebody who subscribed to the Christian faith, meaning he subscribed to Jesus and what he did. Therefore, as a Jew, Paul understood the law is irrelevant, not because it doesn't really matter anymore, but Jesus already did it. Jesus did the law. He fulfilled the law. Therefore, in our context as Christians, it's irrelevant. For Jews, Orthodox Jews, obviously it's still relevant, but they don't believe Jesus was Jesus, right? Or they don't believe he was a deity. All right, ramble done. 12. But the law is not of faith. This phrase means that the law is based on doing and not trusting. Paul's point in saying that is not that the law fails to justify the people who do its works, but that God did not intend for the law to make people righteous, which is what we were kind of just talking about. Paul's point, I'm going to say it again. Paul's point was not that the law fails to justify. We're not wiping that out. It doesn't fail to justify those who do the law's work. But what he's saying is that God did not intend for the law to be the thing that made people righteous. That wasn't the intention. It had a different intention. He cites Leviticus, thank God. He cites Leviticus 18 in this verse to show that the scripture itself teaches that the law's function is to provide a way to live obediently, to live under God, under God's rule, not to justify, not to bring righteousness to somebody, but to be obedient to God. It had a different purpose. It wasn't a salvific thing. All right. 13. Christ redeemed us from the curse. He's referencing his earlier text up there about the curse. He redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone who is hanged on a tree. So that's what I was saying, is the point of Christ is that he walks ahead, he falls first, you get to take the mirror off, and now when you fall, it's a little bit less painful. It has a different purpose. Jesus served his purpose. Cursed is everyone who is hanged on a tree. That's also from Deuteronomy. It's from Deuteronomy 21. And when Christ became the curse, which is what Paul is saying, when he became the curse for us through the crucifixion, he in doing that, finished. That's why you get all these, right? Like, think of the cliche Christian songs, right? He finished it. He finished it. Well, it's based in, good theology. When he went to the cross and he did what he did, he completely accomplished redemption as a concept, as a theological concept. He accomplished in its entirety the concept theologically of atonement. It's done. It's been accomplished for everyone who is under Christ. That was the purpose. So if that was the purpose, how could you possibly bring the law into the early Christian church? How could you do it? Theologically, it makes no damn sense, which was Paul's hang up. 14. So that in Christ Jesus, the blessing of Abraham might come to the Gentiles so that we might receive the promised Spirit through faith. Receive the promised Spirit through faith. Paul began this chapter, this section, being sarcastic and rhetorical. The rhetorical question that was implying that the Galatians had received the Spirit through faith. That was it. That was in 3:2-5. With that, the Galatians had already experienced the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham. And just log that away for a minute, because we'll come back to it. The law and the promise. To give a human example, brothers, even with a man-made covenant, no one annuls it or adds to it once it has been ratified. Even with a man-made covenant. In the example, in Paul's example, the covenant is in reference to the promise that God made to Abraham, which is why I said log the Abraham thing away. He's going to go deep into this right now. It was the promise between God and Abraham. Before God had instructed Abraham to be circumcised, which was when? It was in Genesis 17. The covenant was ratified not by circumcision. Think about it. If you have timeline down, God instructed Abraham to be circumcised in Genesis 17. The covenant was ratified in 15, and it was not by circumcision. It was ratified by God himself, period. So he's doing what he does with the education that he has, and because he's a savage, and he's making this abundantly clear to them. It's a great example. Honestly, it's genius. It's the perfect example to give to these people who have this specific problem. Paul was able to pull the absolute best perfect example in relation to Abraham and say, even in this scenario, you being obsessed with circumcision seems unnecessary. Consider it. That's what he's saying. 16, now the promises were made to Abraham and to his offering. It does not say, and to offsprings. Read that again in case it didn't come across. It's verse 16. Now the promises were made to Abraham and his offspring. It does not say, quote, and to offsprings, plural, referring to many, but referring to one. The promise of the blessing and the Spirit is given to Christ through Abraham. That's his point. The very narrow application of the promise, then after that, expands to everyone else. right? It's leading to one people of faith descended from Abraham, including, which it's everyone. It's Gentiles, it's Jews. But he's saying the promise of the blessing and the Spirit is to be given to Christ through Abraham. And through Christ, he says all of us benefit from that. So it was not given to Abraham's offsprings. It was given to the offspring, which is Jesus. 17. This is what I mean. The law, which came 430 years afterward, does not annul a covenant previously ratified by God, so as to make the promise void. 430 years ago. He's referring to the Israelites' period of slavery in Egypt. After the Exodus, in Exodus 12, 40, and 41, God gave the law to the Israelites in the wilderness, which was 20 through 24 in Exodus. He's laying out the timeline. And then he said, so as to make the promise void. Other translations might say in order to nullify the promise. Paul's point in that is that the law does not alter anything about God's earlier covenant with Abraham. The covenant from 15 in Genesis. The covenant that predated the circumcision. It's really interesting when all of this gets laid out, because not only does it make sense in this context right here, but maybe it's just me, but I start reeling about the current modern day church. And maybe it's just because I'm obsessed with it, but I'm obsessed with why we are where we are. I'm obsessed with why Christians justify what they justify. I'm infatuated in a sick and negative way with why we are comfortable doing at an academic level and doing at like the highest levels of Christian leadership, the literal exact things that the book everybody's holding says not to do. It just wows me. It completely blows me away. And that's why I don't know if it's like, are we just that uneducated, or do we know and we just ignore it because either socially or culturally or is it financial? We just really need the money that bad. And well, everybody believes this now, so let's just roll with it. I don't know, but it drives me absolutely insane. But anytime I read this and I read Paul really lay things out, just like James, when we read James made so much absolutely abundantly clear, so much so that he'd drop a point and then he'd double back on it just to be damn sure you knew what he was talking about. And still the church participates in all of those things as an organization, as a system. There are great churches out there, obviously, but it blows my mind. Whenever I read the Bible, it kind of pisses me off. Okay, I went through all that. All right, 17. Nope, 18. For if the inheritance comes by the law, it no longer comes by promise, but God gave it to Abraham by a promise. 19. Why then the law? It was added because of transgressions, until the offspring should come to whom the promise had been made. And it was put in place through angels by an intermediary. It's going to get hot. All right, it was added on account of transgressions. The point is that the law was added subsequent to the covenant that God had made with Abraham. Paul's statement here can be, I don't know. Paul's statement here, I think, is really just to express, I guess there's really two ways you could go about it. I'll say it like this. I personally believe that the way this would interpret the easiest without doing hoops is to mean that the law's purpose was again to define and make clear your sin. It was to define your iniquities of the Israelites. You could also possibly interpret it a different way, but I think you would have to stretch. I think the easiest is sometimes the simplest, and the simplest in the scenario is just that that's exactly what it was. The only reason you would go a different way, you'd have to kind of discount some of the points that Paul has already made, which I think is irresponsible. But this is one of those times where I'm just going to be very blatantly honest that I have a bias with this a little bit. but the bias is based on the context. So I think it's more or less a justified bias. He's made very clear one thing: the law is irrelevant within this context. The law is irrelevant. So right here, it was added because of transgressions. I don't know why you'd translate it any other way. So just so you guys know, when I do this, I'll pull up like 3 to 6 different writing, whether it's an academic paper, sometimes it's a commentary. It just depends. But I'll try to pull up a bunch of different things. And what I do personally is I'll get something from the Catholic religion, from the Catholic Christian denomination, something from a Protestant denomination, something from a more Arminianist denomination, and then I'll try to get it as versed as I can, and I'll sit down with them right there on verses like this, and I'll see where did they all differ from each other, and where might they all be aligned. The interesting thing to me is that it seems like the further, I guess it's not really that interesting, but it seems like the further the denomination gets away from the core, I think the best today would be like orthodoxy. I think it's the closest you have. That's my opinion, but I think it's the closest you have to the early Christian church. And I don't think they have it, but I think it's the closest you have. But when you get then to, say, more reformed Calvinist churches, they keep a bit of it. And then when you move past them to, say, non-denominational churches, they've lost a bit, but still keep a bit of it. And then when you move to Methodist, you've lost a good bit. And when you move to Catholic, you've lost a good bit too, in my opinion. And in all of those, there are great churches that stick to the Bible totally. But in a general sense, a very, very general sense. When I'm reading these commentaries or I'm looking at academic papers or whatever, when I'm going through all these when we do them, it kind of wows me a bit to see just how broad the interpretations sometimes are. And I get that I'm ranting a lot tonight. Sorry, but I was reading this today and like it really got in my head. A lot of this stuff really got in my head today for whatever reason. It's wild how broad it really is. So some of the Catholic interpretations, they really did discount like everything else Paul was saying in the entire text. So if it was added because of transgressions, if their commentary on that tells you anything really other than that this was in order to reflect sin back to the Israelites, and it gives you a different concept, I would just be weary of the rest of what they were saying about the earlier chapters, I guess is what I would say. Does it align? Does it not align? I'm trying to be really careful because I don't want to offend anybody, because I know we have kind of a broad scope here, but just be very wary of that. That's why I go through a lot of different commentaries when I do this. Just be very wary of that. Graves, good to see you, man. God had told us that he was a jealous God. When you're told that, it's hard as a people to walk away from that. I mean, fair enough. It's finished is what rabbis would shout when they finish the animal sacrifice. Jeremiah, do you go to a temple? All right, I'm just gonna roll. Sorry, I'm like debating in my head whether I want to go into this thing or not, and I think that we're gonna skip it for tonight. We're just gonna bounce to 20. Nope, I'm sorry. It was put in place through angels by an intermediary. The tradition of angels that were participating in the giving of the law is also out of Deuteronomy. If you go to Deuteronomy 33, you get an indication of that. But there's a participation in the giving of the law in Deuteronomy. It's also mentioned in probably the text I mentioned more than anything else, which is Acts, because Acts gives us the big broad picture of more than anything else. But if you go to Acts 7, you also get that context as well. The mediator Paul is envisioning here is most likely Moses, because he said, until the offspring should come to whom the promise had been made, and it was put in place through angels by an intermediary. It's probably Moses that he's talking about. Probably. 20. Now an intermediary implies more than one, but God is one. It's notoriously difficult to interpret this specific verse. So regardless of what exactly he's trying to say, greater context wise, he seems to be just trying to emphasize general unity. It's really hard to say more than that. I would urge you to look it up and see what you get. See what commentaries say. I've seen a bit that's a bit wild. I've seen some stuff that it makes sense, but not sure. A lot of commentaries skip it. We've talked about that in the past too. is if you actually study the Bible with the commentary, and this is why I actually tell people not to read commentaries, is a lot of time they'll just skip verses that they don't want to deal with. Instead of being like, yeah, this is really tough. Here's what it could have been. Here's what it might be. But really, we just don't know. There's not enough clarity. The translation didn't work as well as, it does in other sections. Instead, they'll just like skip it. So a lot of your commentaries will just go straight from 19 to 21, and they'll pretend like 20 doesn't exist. It's very difficult. Now, an intermediary implies more than one, but God is one. Unity would make sense in a general sense. He contrasted the many with the one to show that Christ fulfills the promises or the promise given to Abraham. Similarly, right here, the law mediated by Moses leads to division, right? Which is part of why Moses, I think, makes sense for the intermediary, for the mediator would be Moses, because that would also make sense because the law was mediated by Moses, and that led to division between the Jews and the Gentiles, rather than to one family or faith worshiping the one true God. But who knows? Who knows? There's just not enough information. He wasn't clear enough. And that's something we kind of touched on last week too, was you have to keep in mind also that they knew, right? If I write a letter to all of you right now, say I write a letter right now about what's going on in our Discord group. Okay, where's the drama? Who is the person that people are kind of annoyed with right now? Like, what's going on in the Discord group? And I wrote a letter, and say I send it to Ghost because he's a moderator. I send it to Ghost and Shannon, and they make copies of it, and then they send it to everybody else in the Discord. All of you guys will know what I'm talking about. If I mention names, if I'm brief or if I'm very short on certain things that happened a week ago, everybody's gonna have 100% of the context because you're living it. You're there. When you get this far removed, and this is why, I mean, it's the biggest reason why the Bible's so jacked up. When you get this far removed, you have to guess when he's not clear. Like in 20, you just have to guess. And where Christians go wrong is when they guess and decide that's a fact. And I feel like that's what denominations have primarily done. We've guessed, and then we decide this is law. This is fact, which ironically, it's just a new version of the law. We're creating new versions of our own law. Yes, he does. My temple is called, I'm not even going to try. I mean, I know Shalom, but could this verse be about Moloch, you think? Do you have a case for that? I mean, who knows, man? If you have a case for it, I'd love to hear it. Rodriguez, why uh-oh? What is uh-oh? Oh, yo, I got a jam. I've been ranting a lot tonight. I apologize. I knew I felt weird. I came in here. Who was here? Nat was here. I said I felt weird. I feel weird today. I feel weird. So I apologize if I've been like rambling most of the time tonight. I do apologize. I came into this feeling odd though. So there it is. There's the culmination of my oddness. All right, 21. Let's just get through this. Everybody can have a lovely night without me ranting and complaining. 21. Is the law then contrary to the promises of God? Certainly not. For if a law had been given that could give life, then righteousness would indeed be by the law. 22. But the scripture imprisoned everything under sin, so that the promise by faith in Jesus Christ might be given to those who believe. The scripture imprisoned all under sin. He's explaining the purpose of the law just in a continued manner, to make all people aware of their need for deliverance from sin. The point is that the law does not deliver you from sin. He's just continuing to try to get the concept across to these people. And then he said, by faith in Jesus Christ, it seems contextually to be suggesting that people in the Old Testament were saved by the law in a way, while those in the New Testament were saved by faith. He said, so that the promise by faith in Jesus Christ might be given to those who believe. Whereas there was a way of the Old Testament, we are now under the New Testament. Technically, we are now under the fulfillment of the law. Abraham, however, was justified before God before God through faith. He's again just pushing that point. Paul refers not to faith in kind of a general sense, but in a very specific sense, in context to Christ by name. He was general before, is the point. He was general before. Now he's pulling it into a more specified context. 23, now before faith came, we were held captive under the law, imprisoned under the coming faith would be revealed. So then the law was our guardian until Christ came, in order that we might be justified by faith. The law had a temporary and protective role. It kept people aware. It kept people mindful of their condition. And then it guided them toward their maturity, because it was the mirror of their iniquity, and it was meant to just push them in the direction of maturity in God, which again, it's being, God, I lost the word now. It's being obedient. I apologize. It's being obedient. Proof of iniquity, continual understanding of one's iniquity, and a directive to be obedient under God. Is it a messianic temple? The angel of Yahweh was, I think, yes. My opinion. I'm really sometimes careful when we do these Bible studies. That's why I got really hung up earlier, is because I try to keep these Bible studies as not woo-woo as possible. And I try to keep them like as, you know, as much as we can actually like prove, and that fits within kind of the Christian, how do you say it? The Christian accepted sphere. But I guess let's just get real for a second, because I've already ranted for most of the time. So maybe we'll just do chapter 3 tonight, I think, because we're a freaking hour in. I've already blown this. But let's just get real for a second, because I don't think we've ever talked about this, and there's 15 of you here right now. So here's the thing, guys. When we do the Bible study, if anybody hasn't noticed, I stay very restricted, right? And sometimes you'll see that I'm thinking. And I'm not thinking because I don't know what to say. I'm thinking because there's a lot that I want to say. And there's a lot that I want to get into. And there's many rabbit holes that I just like, I have a hand in one, I have a hand in another one, and both my feet are in other rabbit holes. And I'm doing everything I can to like stay out of the rabbit hole. Because there's a lot to these things. And whenever Ghost is here, not whenever, but every once in a while when Ghost is here, he'll throw something out that is either one of the rabbit holes or just provides another rabbit hole. And so then I have to deal with that. But I try to keep these as just Bible, just what's in this text as possible. And then when we go into the Apocrypha, you know, then we'll get into some, obviously it's outside of the canon, so it's extra canonical. But I really try to like stay within the scriptures that people read, because I don't want to go too far off, because I don't want to lose people if they come in here for like a normal Bible study. And I don't want to confuse people too much, because I think the Bible is already insanely confusing. So even going through just like the demographic context, the geographical context, the language, trying to figure out the actual translations, I think it's already really difficult to read the Bible. So then if I go off into woo land, or I start talking about Lilith, which I probably will anyways, but when I start doing that, I worry that people will get lost, either because they're like, oh, holy shit, why are they talking about that? This is not for me. Or even if the people who are like, oh, I like this stuff, this is great, I still feel like it'll get too confusing, because the Bible itself is already so confusing. And there's been a hard struggle with that tonight, for sure. Ghost has rabbit holes that are inside rabbit holes that are also inside rabbit. Yeah, he does, for sure. Which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. But just understand, that's why sometimes when we do Bible study, I get bogged down a little bit, because I'm debating in my head of like, do I talk about that? Do I not talk about that? Just keep reading, just keep reading, just keep reading. And then sometimes I'll break and talk about it anyways. But I really try to stay as zoned in and honed in as possible, as to not, stray too far from the pack, I guess. Thursdays, wild, whatever. Down to talk about whatever. Saturdays, obviously, we'll talk about whatever. But I try to keep Sundays a little bit more chill, just in case. But every once in a while we'll break. Illuception. I am considering going back to visit the Orthodox temple again. They welcomed me and I had a spiritual awakening. I love Orthodox churches, man. I really do. Just the tradition alone is really cool. I love the woo-woo, Ruth. I think we all love the woo-woo. To some degree, we all love the woo-woo. All right, yeah, we're going to call it for the Bible study tonight. I mean, we're an hour in and we did a chapter. We're going to call it. I am sorry. I had a bit of a struggle this evening. There's so much. There's so much. Ghost, if you have a case for that, though, I would like to hear it. I'm curious why. I think I can guess a bit of it, but I'm pretty curious. You don't have to type it right now or anything, but I'm curious. When is my sacrifice schedule? I don't know. Mikkel, I think, is in charge of the sacrificial schedule. So he's going to have to figure it out. That's all the point. Think outside the box. Yeah. 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 We'll see. We're going to take a break from, I think after we do Galatians, we're going to take a break from the New Testament, go do something apocryphal, and then I think we'll come back after that. So I'm not sure what. I'll run a poll for it, of course, but I think after we finish Galatians, I'll post a poll with all the apocryphal, not all, but a good amount of the apocryphal texts, and then you guys can pick, and then we'll go through one of those, and then we'll probably come back to the New Testament. I think we'll just take breaks and go apocryphal, because maybe that'll help me kind of expend all this crap that I just like, all the rabbit hole energy that I need to run down. And then we can come back and get serious again. Ghost rabbit holes are more like anthills. Ghost rabbit holes are like Atlantis. Wasn't there a mountain related to Atlantis? I'm so uncultured. No Orthodox temples for you. They separate the men and the women. Not all Orthodox Christian churches do it, though. I've been to Orthodox services for Christians where they didn't separate them. But, I mean, in a way that kind of says they're not so Orthodox, I suppose you could say. Nah, I know I was quiet for the first time ever on this one, but I got a lot out of these chapters. Love good old Petty Paul. Yeah, I'm glad. I felt like I kept losing the lead because my mind kept spinning on other things. So I'm glad to hear that. Very glad to hear that. Again, though, if you did not watch last week, go watch last week. I was not fixated on rabbit holes last week, and a lot of really good stuff was covered. And it's going to give you a hell of a lot more context as we go forward, because Galatians just kind of runs. It's not easy to just jump into Galatians. That's why I like these devotionals where like they throw you in the middle of a book. I'm like, oh my God, please don't do that. They found Atlantis in the Sahara Desert. Yeah, but wasn't there some kind of mountain range under there? I could be completely full of crap. I just, for some reason, I have like a vague memory of Atlantis being found, or what they thought was Atlantis, and like some kind of mountainous range there. Very true. I actually like that. Ant-Man confirmed. He is a man of culture, yes. He is much more a man of culture than I. I'm socially awkward and had no idea what I was doing, and I had a screaming toddler. I'm not going back to the Orthodox. We can go to the conservative temple. I'm glad, Scott. I'm glad. I don't feel like it was. I feel like it was a lot of me trying to figure out what to go into. But I mean, we covered a lot of good stuff still. An ocean trail. Okay. Is that what I'm thinking of? Near the dragon skeletons or whale skeletons? Oh, are they dragons? Is that a conspiracy? I feel like that's one that I need to be in on. Is there a conspiracy that whales are actually dragons? Because I'm actually a big fan of that idea. I think that's a great idea. Concentric circles in Mauritania. That's what they thought Atlantis was, right? I watched something at some point about Atlantis. Ghost is Bright Insights, the guy who does the stuff about Atlantis. I think it is, right? That's that guy, right? Who was on the culture war the other day. I think it is. But I think I watched him talk about Atlantis at some point. Sahara is a spillway created by the flood. The mud floods? The mud flood? The Eye of the Sahara. The Eye of the Sahara. Right, okay, thank you, Scott. I know you like asked me about him a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, I don't listen to him. I realized after I saw him on the Culture War, I've watched or I've listened to some stuff from him before. And I think one of them was Atlantis, yeah. I mean, he's wildly knowledgeable about that stuff. Listening to him rattle things off is very impressive. It's super impressive. Oh, Noah's flood. Okay. Interesting. So Sahara is a spillway created by Noah's flood. Interesting. And the Eye of the Sahara is filled with sea salt. Yeah, that you can see, right? From satellite imagery or whatever. Can't you see like the buildup of salt? I believe so. I think so. Randall Carlson is awesome as well. Yeah, I know Randall Carlson. I've listened to a lot of Randall Carlson. He has a ton of information related to the Younger Dryad. Yeah, see, I've heard a bit about that. Beyond that, I'm relatively uncultured. I've gotten a bit more though over the past couple of months. I'm just very selective about like where my time goes. And honestly, that should be something I prioritize a bit, because it's, you know, it's relevant. But yeah, you can see it on Google Earth. Yeah, that's what they were doing on the Culture War. I think that's why that's in my head. I think they were looking at that. And so, all right. Well, since you guys are here, we're gonna start closing out. But I do want to just remind or tell you for the first time that we will be. Let me just get it up here. We will be having movie night again soon. And this was decided because I listened to something on Friday that Ghost had listened to as well, and Kat has listened to as well. And it's really, really interesting. So it is this right here. It probably won't be this week. I'm hoping for the next week, but we're going to watch this together in Discord only, not on YouTube or anything. But it's climate change, the Great Disaster Cycle, Atlantis, and more. It was really, really good. Regardless of how you feel, I'm going to say the same thing I said last time. Regardless of how you feel about Tim Pool, because he drives me insane as an individual, I respect his work. I respect his platform. I really appreciate like what they do as a company. But he as a person drives me freaking banana sandwich. But this was really, really interesting. It was very interesting. So I think we are going to make this our next movie night. Like we did Messiah 2020 or 20, was it 2030? 2033? Was it 2030? It was 2030. I think. Joe also looks like a redheaded Macklemore. Do you know how many times I've been told that? I've gotten Macklemore, and then I've gotten that one fighter, the Irish guy. I can't remember. McGregor. Beanie Tim. Yeah, Beanie Tim. Yo, have you guys seen him without the beanie? It's not flattering. It's not flattering. The dude just needs to shave his head. When I start to lose more hair than I've already lost, I'm just going to shave my head. Just own it, baby. Own it. Yes, Sir G. Graham is my dad. All right, but that's what we're gonna do. So that'll be movie night. We'll do that at some point in the next. Like I said, probably not this week. but I'm hoping next week we can do it. I think it'd be really cool to be able to watch that together and then maybe talk about it. We're gonna watch it at 2.5 speed though, so just be ready. Thumbcast, bro. You look like Phil from the Rugrats all grown up. I don't remember what Phil looked like. Hold on. What? Is that a boy? Oh, that's the girl. Okay, I see. It's the same person. The boy and the girl are the same person. That's such lazy art. Or they were twins, weren't they, actually? They were. I mean, I get why you think that. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm offended because I don't understand it. I see where you're coming from. He's got the side shaved. He's got the slick back thing going on. What is? Did they make a? I don't mean this in a negative way, but did they make like a black Rugrats or like a multicultural Rugrats, or is this like internet stuff? Is this for real? That guy looks like him too, though. Hey, I need a side-by-side of Phil from the Rugrats. They are twins. Okay, got it. I mean, I get it. I don't hate it. You're right. I can see it. Here he is as a teenager. Minus the goatee, it's relatively accurate. Someone draw him as one of the babies with his tattoos. Hey, if somebody could pull that off, somebody go to Midjourney. Go to Midjourney and tell Midjourney to make that. That would be wild. I've done some crazy stuff with AI. I'll tell you, it's very scary. It's scary stuff, man. Are we doing a Joe roast? I'm down. I'm very hard to offend. If somebody can actually offend me, you win a prize. That's worse than my brawny man comment. Oh yeah, never mind. I know what you're talking about. I remember. Yeah, you're right. I'd rather be the brawny man, I think, than a 2-year-old with a rubber ducky in his pocket. Next week on Roast Your Pastor. That's okay. I always get told I look like enter any ethnically ambiguous woman here. Demi Lovato, Selena Gomez. I don't know how to pronounce the last one. Priyanki Chopra. Oh, I'm so uncultured. All of whom I look wildly different from each other. Oh, all of whom look wildly different from each other. That's funny. Now, what is your actual ethnicity again? I forgot. I feel like I know that you've told us at some point, so I apologize, but remind me. I want to say like Egyptian or something. I know that that's not true. Charlotte, thank you for yeah, Charlotte, it was good to see you. I'm glad you were able to make it. I'm sorry you came on a night like tonight. Usually it is much more professional on Bible study night. It is less of like live stream hour and much more of a come do Bible study and leave. But tonight was a weird night. I'm glad that everybody accepted it. I roast Joe every hour and a half daily, sometimes in my sleep. That's actually true. And it is a big part of why I can't be offended. That, and also just, I think many of you can relate to having childhoods and teenage years where so much happened that as an adult, it's very difficult to phase you with anything. I'm sure several of you can relate. Gingers do have souls. I think I do. I believe that I do. They found Joe's bite mark on a baby cow's neck. Sicilian. Okay, so you're not Egyptian. Got it. I'm having a weird night. I'm having a very weird night. I apologize. Today is special. Yes. Again, I'm very sorry. This is usually a much more tight run ship here on Sundays. So anybody who's watching this right now who's not with us normally, or you're watching the recording later, go watch a different one. And then you'll see Sundays are very tame. Sunday is the only time we're actually professional. And I've just blown that. I get Hispanic all the time, Nat said. All the time, though. Being bilingual probably doesn't help. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I can understand why they think that. And Joe looks like a car rolling down a hill with both doors open. That's good. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. See, the big ear joke. That's good. That's good. Because it's got to be based on something you can't change, right? For it to be truly offensive, it's got to be on something you cannot change. The making fun of the hair, like, I could just do my hair different. Make fun of a beard, like, I'll just shave my beard. But a car rolling down a hill with both doors open, there's nothing I can do about that. It's just my face. It's just my ears. That was a good one. That was pretty good. Shannon said, you built like a lobster. What? What does that even mean? Shannon needs to explain. What does built like a lobster mean? I have big claws. I have big hands, I suppose. A buff ass lobster. Larry the What is Larry the Lobster? Lilith, I know. I love you guys. Larry the Lobster is the guy from SpongeBob. Ugh. Well, I mean, he's kind of buff, so I'll take it. Oh, I'm this guy right here. Hold up. Hold up. That is I. Right there. That one or this one? I'll take either. You guys decide. No, Shannon, I tan. So here's your problem. Here's your problem. My dad is olive skinned. My dad is a super tall, super handsome Italian man. My mother was a short Norwegian woman. So I got obviously all of the Norwegian and none of the Italian, except for I tan hard. So I burn one good time and then I tan real hard. So no, that one doesn't work. I got howdy doody remarks constantly as a kid. Howdy doody. Good night, Pastor. Have a good night. I shouldn't say this. My kids have... Oh, my kid has a crush on me. What? Which kid? That's funny. Is that a new development, Rodriguez? Or have they had a crush on me since 2016? That's really funny. You have your wings when you get picked up in a wind. Fair enough. Good. Good stuff. This is good stuff. Joe looks like Bob the Tomato in human form. Bob the Tomato. Wait, I know this one. Oh, VeggieTales. Right? VeggieTales? I think so. I picked VeggieTales. I'm like damn sure that's what it is. Bob the Tomato. You go out in the sun and you just turn red. No, I turn red once and then I tan. Shannon, here's the thing. I bet I out tan you just because I spend more time outside. Let's have a tan contest this summer. We will post progress photos and see who gets more tan by August, by the end of August. Damn, Graves said you the logo for Red Bull. The stigma around redheads is that you're Irish or Scottish instead of tanning you burn. Yeah, it definitely is. Definitely is. Well, I mean, because it's true most of the time. Just like most redheads truly are very unattractive, and most redheads have like awful freckles and stuff, you know? I get the stereotypes against redheads. I fully grasp them because statistically they're pretty damn true. A ginger who can tan is a unicorn. Yeah, I got really lucky. I'm very, very lucky that my dad was so tall, dark, and handsome that I got at least some residual something from him. I was very, very blessed in that regard. Last one, all the blood in Joe's body goes to his... That's true. That's absolutely true. When I get hot, my ears, like, They are like radiators. It just all goes to my ears. They just get super hot. The little one, she's 16. Oh, great. Your 16-year-old kid has a crush on me. She doesn't like church, but when I have you on TV, she calls you a snack. Oh my God. Oh, that's such an atrocious term. I've heard that a few times, and it's just yucky. The term snack is yucky. Shannon done. Tan off. We're having a tan off this summer. Tell your daughter, redheaded man with the tattoos, hands are dangerous. Oh my gosh, shut the hell up. We are ending the stream. This is going down dark ass alleys. This is a Bible study, y'all. Daughter's blast. She normally likes blonde hair, blue eye guys. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not quite that. You look like a naughty angel. What the fuck is happening right now? My ears have been red, have they not? Every time I stream, my ears are red. I have a fan blowing directly at me, and I'm still just blistering hot every time I do this. There's lights like pounding on my face. I need to get a fan that like blows up at me from the floor, or put an AC unit in this room. Joe the Rizla. Oh, what? Pastora, good God. Joe is snack daddy. Yo, I think we're done. I think we're done. Roast your pastor, or tell your pastor he's a snack. Oh. Roasted peanuts. Nope, your ears got super red when you read the comment about my daughter. I don't even know what your daughter looks like though. What if her and I don't jive aesthetically? You know? Cat, it's like that Drake meme. I'm too uncultured to get the Drake meme. This is the most fun I've had in a Bible study. I'm gonna have to delete this stream. What is the Drake meme? Oh, is that the like hand up meme thing? I think I know what you're talking about. Never mind. I'm making and posting that in Discord. Jesus Christ, dude. Jesus Christ. I know I should have just ended the stream when I got rabbit hole fixated. It's, well, Kat said it accurately. It was roast your pastor day, and then it was tell me that I'm a snack day, which is very contradictory. It's very confusing. I don't know if I should be offended and hurt or if I should be very flattered. It's a very it's an ambivalent feeling that I have right now. I'm just saying he holds. He ate 15-course meal. Pastor, you're the best. Can you edit the stream? I don't think so. No, I don't know. I need to find somebody who truly has like experience streaming, because they'd be able to help me with a lot of stuff. I'm doing the best I can with the time that I have, which is basically the time that we are on live streams. So I might get a little bit of time to like try to figure stuff out, but between like social media and trying to reply to people and stuff, I have a very hard time actually learning how to do this. So I'm like barely scraping by, but I have no idea. I don't know if you can edit it after the fact. I know this because we have problems with it. What I really want to know, if anybody knows somebody who knows how to stream, when our streams die, is there a way to restart it on the same stream, like on the same feed? Or does it have to be a new video? That's the real question. Whether you can edit it or not, whatever. But that's like, even that I haven't figured out. It's been almost a year since I've been doing this, and I just can't figure it out. I need to find somebody, a consultant, who really knows what they're doing that can help me like dial this in. Joe looks like he's ticklish. I'm actually really not. Yeah, I'm actually, yeah, see, Kat said Joe isn't ticklish. But he does hate having his yawns poked. Ask him about that. Shut the fuck up. Oh. This is the best night of my life. I don't think I can edit the video. I don't think I can edit the video. So I think it just is what it is. Let's be real though. If anybody is going to listen to me talk, they kind of have to be okay with stuff like this. What? I can hear Kat laughing downstairs. I really, really appreciate how in-depth these Bible studies are, for sure. I've been going back and listening to others. I'm very glad about that, because this was not one of them. This has turned into a whole different thing that I have no idea what to even call it. But I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, the Bible study is like my favorite thing that we do every week. Or, I don't know. I can't say that. But I really enjoy it. I'll just say I really enjoy it. Kat, I do the same thing to Jeremiah Gargo. Yawn Pokers Anonymous. Does everybody know what yawn poking is? I didn't know what it was until Kat and I started living together. And then I realized that I hate her. It's when you yawn and you're in the comfort of your own home. And so you don't fully, or you don't at all, cover your mouth. And somebody jams their finger down your throat. I didn't know that existed until Kat moved in with me. And then did it to me, and it was a very not pleasant experience. Memes live on Discord to confuse everyone who wasn't here. That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point. Kat is dying downstairs right now. I can hear her through every wall in the house. Joe's teeth look like they wind up. What? What does that even mean? What is wrong with my teeth? I got decent teeth. Try to put your finger in his mouth as fast as you can. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. She did it to me again the other day after lying in wait for like a year and a half. So that she did the long con because I was always skittish for the first like 4 or 5 years of us being together, because she would always do it to me. I never yawned around her, or I would like dramatically cover my mouth. But the other day, she got me real good because I felt very comfortable and very safe in my own kitchen. She got me real good. Streams can be edited, yes. Can they be? I'll look at it. I'll look at it. I know like videos you can clip things out of. I know there's certain things you can do. Like I've replaced audio out of a stream before. But can I download the ending here? Because I want to keep this. And I'll upload it as like a separate video. There's no way you already made a meme. Is that what that is? There's no way. Oh my god. Oh, this is ridiculous. Roast. What is this turning into? Oh my god. Rodriguez, that's really funny. This is wild. You did the long con. It was, I mean, it was well done. The delay between what I'm saying and Kat hearing it is kind of funny. I don't think... You've baited me out of Ian? Oh, yes. Never mind. I misunderstood. Yes, absolutely she has. It is against the Geneva Convention. I mean, this is what Guantanamo should still exist for. Is for disrespecting wives who do not let their men live in comfort in their own home and poke the back of their throat while they try to yawn. It's a sick, dark, pagan thing to do. Yes, that would be called clipping. I sense some sarcasm there, friend. Yeah, Nat killed it with that. That was very well done. Here's the thing, though. It's not getting clipped tonight. I have other things I got to do. So hopefully I'll get some time tomorrow to look at it. I just don't care that much. If people are going to be around, they need to be ready for anything. Poor guy just wanted to mess with me and almost lost a finger. I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't laughed this much in a while, and my depression has been kicking my rear lately. So thank you. Well, I'm glad we could help. I'm glad we could help. This has been rather entertaining. There needs to be... maybe we should make Shannon and Ghost. Should we make the cult quotes public? And then maybe we can put, you know, cult related memes in there too. Sure. All right, that was good. The hairline one was good. Are you Googling insults based on my physical characteristics and then tailoring to me? I would still respect it. No, talking a portion of the stream and separating it is called clipping. No sarcasm. Oh, okay. That's why I hate text. Because sometimes it seems like a snotty retort. And I'm like, is this person being rude? Am I stupid? Because I know I'm kind of dumb with the live stream stuff. I get it. I get it enough to put it online, but that's about as far as it goes. But thank you for clarifying. I appreciate it. Because I'm like, damn, she thinks I'm dumb. I'm okay with it, but no, he's actually just like this. Yeah, this is how Jeremiah is all the time. I can attest to this. I have talked to them in off time, and they are exactly the same. Both of them are. Absolutely. Was the absolutely in terms of making it public? I think I'll move the cult quotes to somewhere else, and then I'll save the... God, I don't want to clutter things though. I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. Now I'm going to save your meme, and when I post it, when I make the new section, I will be sure to give you credit. Okay. That was so good. All right. I got it. I'll get that figured out. Yes, cult quotes should be public. Yeah, the cult quote stuff is... I know we've missed a lot of them too. But God, there's some good stuff in there, man. There's some good stuff in there. Oh, we missed a lot. Then there's a thread somewhere else. I gotta find it. The one in the staff chat, it does not have all of them. I'm gonna have to find that. So for everybody who's here, we have... Can I show this? Show them again. No, okay. We have somewhere. We have a log of wild stuff that people have said during live streams, and some of it is extremely funny. So I'll make a channel in Discord somewhere for all of that. And then the memes can go in there too. Because I have a feeling this is just the beginning. Cat looks like she bites trees. I just bit back. Oh, Jesus Christ. What time is it? 7:30. Fucking lobster. God. Oh. Got them. This is probably true. Cat has a mouse hostage in the basement. It is probably for that purpose. I do have to figure out how to clip this. All right, y'all. We are going to wind this down. We're going to wind this down. Wind it on down. Shannon and Jeremiah, it was good to have you both here for a bit. It's a good time. Good time. And Jeremiah, I saw your message, and that is fine. That is fine. So that time's good. We'll figure that out. Cat bites king cobras. She would. She's yet to, but she would. Like, probably actually she would. Gargo makes Super Mario sounds when he does the dishes. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to clip it. But here's the thing. If I can't clip it and save it, it's staying up. I don't care. We have completely destroyed any hope of organic traffic to my YouTube channel. It's over. It's over. It's over. So this doesn't really matter. This is why I really hope you guys are telling your friends about this. Anybody that you want here, I hope you are telling people, because YouTube will not promote any of this crap ever. Nat, have a great night. Thanks for being here. Here we go. Here we go. All right, y'all. I'm gonna shut off and try to figure out if I can clip this or not. We'll see. We'll see. I love you guys. Have a great evening. This was entertaining, to say the least. You guys are great. I vote stay up. This is the essence of the group. All right. The clip or stay up? Stay up. I'm not going to edit the video. Clip. I'll clip the video. Well, I can clip it, save it, and upload it as a separate video. Because what's going to happen is some new person is good, but they're probably not, because we don't get new traffic. On the off chance a new person comes, and on the very low statistical possibility that they happen to come to this video. All right, it stays up. You guys win. You guys win. Majority rules here. You know that. All right, video stays untouched. I love you guys. Have a good night.